Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Mouse Says the Butler Didn't Do It mystery series. A series of mysteries written by myself, Nico Scherer, under my pen name of Cheryl Ann Butler. Today we're going to be continuing in Chapter 20 of Escape to a New Hope, involving Dima and Ani. When last we met, Annie had received notice that she was accepted as a studio designer for a bridal center in New Hope, Pennsylvania, owned by the Cugotts. In doing so, she was also offered a home on an island that needs a lot of repairs, but is an historical home to the area, and she had informed Dima about it. Along with this, as they were getting ready to have their meals and everything, she informed him of the SVR officer that had, or the agent that had been basically nailed by an Interpol officer by the name of Michelle Dilettante, and that the SVR officer was taken into custody. We are now returning to them as they have a video that was sent to her by Shelley Cugott of the property and things like that. In the background, you may hear the growls and grumbles of Mouse, who the podcast is named for, over here. Do you want to come say hello? Come on, you can come. You know you don't want to? You don't want to come over here and say hello? Come on. Here is the Mouse. She's ready to say hello. After all, this is her podcast. She says the butler didn't do it. You will also hear Chuck and Maggie in the background as they are running around and jostling. You may hear a couple of growls and groans, and the mouse snarls as she is the mama dog here in this family, and it's quite a grouch at times. And they, just as puppies, won't take no for an answer. Thank you for visiting. You ready to go back over in the bed? Over that way. Go ahead. You too. Leave Mouse alone. Go to your corners like two little children. Thank you. And here we go. Chapter 20. Annie brought up the mail from her new boss, Mrs. Shelley Cugott. Ivana looked over her shoulder. Oh, such a pretty house. It is like old English castle. Annie, what is name of construct? What is word? I can't finish. Dima, she turned. Look at this. You are interested in architecture. You would know word I look for and the name of style. I think the word you look for is construction. That is it. Danke, she smiled. You are learning the German. That is good. Annie, let me see, please. Annie brought the laptop to the bed. She settled next to her husband. The first photo showed the footbridge and the parking area. Then the front of the home. Oh, it's beautiful. The house was built in 1690. It is stone. She says is 3 stories. What is called English William style country estate. 6 bedrooms and 3.5 baths. What is English William style country estate? Ivana asked. I believe he was King of England after Charles II, and that was after Cornwall's time. But after the settlement of your lovely Pennsylvania with William Penn, I will have to research that part of American and English history. Dima sipped his coffee. Houses' style of buildings were given the name of the reigning monarch at the time of their design, I think in both England and the America, but not sure fully. I will have to look it up. The second photo showed the farmhouse-style kitchen, extended pantry, and root cellar. Then there was the walkthrough video that Annie played. Hello, Anastasia, Dim, and children. I hope you enjoy this video. Let me first explain about the oddities of a home this old. The entrance to the home is actually at what you would think is the back of the house. It faces the Delaware River, where this was how most people used to travel a distance back then for the faster way to travel than the roads and through the wooded areas. Let me take you through this old gal. Come on, follow me, she smiled. Shelley walked into a beautiful entryway. This would have been the receiving area, she continued. It does face the river with the pathway through what was once the formal gardens and the terraces where the steps lead down to the path that winds through the overgrowth of beautiful old trees and takes you to the boat docks. The trees, they are fruit trees. They need a damn good pruning. The dock, they do need some repairs. I will show you in the next video, but let us contend with the house first. She is in rough shape, as I've said. She needs a lot of work. This, where we are standing, has the best parlor to this side. The gentleman's parlor sits behind it. The other parlor here across the hall is the ladies' parlor. This has the beautiful, more fancy tiles because a lady was considered of a delicate nature. Behind that sits the family parlor. So you have 4 attached parlors, 2 to each side of the receiving area. She then walked through a door into a large dining room, then into the butler's pantry, and finally the kitchen. There's a small room off the kitchen, which is not original to the house. It was built on sometime in the late 1800s. This kitchen, she waved her hand around, it has the corridor that connects the former kitchen house to the home. Back then, when she was built, they thought the smell or scent of food cooking was offensive. Can you imagine that? So the cooking area was kept separate, but the small room was my mother's laundry. Unfortunately, all of the appliances are missing. They will need to be replaced. They were sold off by my not-so-great brother. I will be honest with you. He was a true drunk. She panned around the area with the camera so that they could see the full extent of the kitchen. Now upstairs, you have 6 bedrooms off of the stairs and landing. I will show you that in a moment, but I wish to show you a very special room that I have always loved, and my Cordero built an exact duplicate onto our home. Let me take you through there. The camera jiggled as she walked down the hall. She turned to one side and pushed open a door. This is a small sitting room library that would be perfect as a study area for the children. And here is what my mother's and father's pride was. Shelley panned her camera around. The master bedroom opened onto what once was an open-air courtyard that was now closed into as part of the house, but still provides an access way to enter the area of the flagstone front court for the beautiful showing of the scenes of the river. And standing in the window was a tiny child. Shelley continued to pan around the room, catching the glance of her husband, Cordero, who waved, and her daughter, Colette, who was with broom in hand and a dustpan sweeping the floor. This is it. It would be beautiful as a sewing room, studio, and Jim would have enough room to set up a workout area with a beautiful view of the river. And through this door is the bedroom and bath with an attached office. Mama, tell them about the back gardens. There are still some old viable fruit trees from Grandma. They need to be pruned back, but Chris Calhoun and Rashta's granddaughters, Liliana and Irina, want to help with that in exchange for some of the fruit, and they already started to work on the berry bushes. Colette spoke as she dumped the dustpan into a bin. Yes, I've told them about the fruit trees. I will show you those also in the next video. There are also several nut trees: pecan, walnut, almond, and an American chestnut. The English chestnuts won't grow here. They've had several problems, and if you carry one, you will need to work with the harvest. But the old American chestnut, it's documented as a historical tree. There's one of only two that we know of in New Hope. You have an abundance of wild berry bushes as well. Now, although the roof does not leak, this place is not, I repeat, not up to living standards. When my brother owned it, he was into bad things, very bad things, alcohol mostly. He would rent it out to anyone and everyone who had a way to pay him. Unfortunately, a lot of damage was done, and he let it happen like the idiot he was. The copper is all gone, plumbing and electrical, what we call copper hounds here in the U.S. There are also several broken windows and interior doors that need replacing. You know about the appliances, as I've told you. Let these folks know about the fireplaces. They need to be checked, inspected, and may need to be sleeved, my dear. This is what Hut and Jess have said, Cordero, her husband, stated. Yes, you're right, Cugott. The fireplaces need to be checked for safety, and you will need a stove and a refrigerator at the least. However, if you are interested when you arrive, we have a friend of our children, Hut O'Flanagan, that is a historian architectural specialist who is willing to lend his expertise free of charge, and a couple of young men who have restored by hand several homes. They are Graham Calhoun, who knows how to restore and repair antique and historical wood and plaster. Jess McMichaels, who is part of the Historical Society, along with Dan Lightfoot. Then there's Errol Donahue and Flynn. Oh, bother, she tapped her chin. I can't for the life of me think of what Flynn's last name is right now. Anyway, they are friends of our Graham, and they know how to do the repairs as well, and they specialize in antiques, not only as their profession, but as a hobby. They all have restored their own historical homes and would be your neighbors, as Jess and Dan live to either side on the islands that are there. The others are sprinkled throughout the New Hope area, and Tommy and Deedle live across River Road, up the private drive, and have children around the same age as yours. They are also friends with the younger generation I've mentioned. We also have a new plumbing company out of Washington's Crossing who are slowly gaining a very good reputation, and they work with the Historical Society, the Cranberry Plumbing and Electrical Contractors. They are owned and run by brothers and sisters Geordie, Robert, Chandra, and Luke Cranberry. Shelley now took the steps to show the upstairs and the bedrooms there as she exited the back room and headed to the main area. As I wrote you, this old girl is surrounded by 5 acres, and in total there are 2 more where the parking area is. To the south as well, I'm proud to say that our granddaughter's ex-husband, the ex is her fault, not his. Jess, he is a wonderful man, a little crazy in a fun way. We love him dearly. We watched him grow up together. It was her fault, not his. Jess, who I spoke of, is a tutor of school-age children and college-bound teens, and an historian of New Hope. He and his blood brother, Dan, along with our Graham, along with the reenactors group I spoke to you about, and the Historical Society of New Hope, they're members of. To the north is a musician and musical director for the school orchestra and composer and all-around wonderful man and Jess's best friend and godfather to our great-granddaughter. This is our Dan Lightfoot, who I spoke of. Daniel Greystone Lightfoot. She climbed the 3rd floor to pan the camera around after showing them each of the bedrooms. Up here is the 3rd floor. There is a set of back, what were called servant steps. Don't try them, please. They are rickier and more worn out than the back steps of the White House when JFK was in office, and he used them to sneak his women past Jackie. They are dangerous and need to be completely rebuilt. This was the servants' quarters up in this area here. She panned around several rooms, and through the copper-covered doors at the end of the hall is the stairway to the roof and the widow's walk. I'm not going to open it because we have November winds here off the river. However, during the summer, it has a gorgeous view of the countryside and of the town of Lambertville, New Jersey, across the Delaware River. In the text, you will find the sales price for the house, and if you are satisfied when you see it, we can set up a lease purchase agreement. So, goodbye for now, and I will await your call for when you arrive in New York City in the U.S. She turned the camera to face her and waved in the video, and it ended. Annie brought up several more photos that they looked at. The second video opened with Colette speaking instead of Shelley, and the tiny little child walking in front of her with what looked like 2 strange dogs, and what Annie thought may be a fox. That looks like a fox, does it not, Dima? Duh, but looks to be very friendly. Is playing with those other 2? Those things. And that with it is a foxhound. But the others, they are not dogs, he pointed to the screen. I do not know what they are, but they listen to the toddler. Very well behaved. This is very interesting. Mama needed a break, Colette stated. She's a coffee hound, so is Daddy, so my granddaughter and I took over. Mickey, wave hi to Annie, Dima, and their children. The tiny little girl turned to wave. Hola, osaho, bonjour, privet, private. Havere, dia, donta, shalom, gia, so, hello. She now leaned against one of the brown animals and wrapped her arms around the other as the fox and hound sat in front of her. You have just been told hello in 10 of the 17 languages Mickey can speak, Colette smiled. My little show-me-up anytime granddaughter. She is Jessie's. And these are the formal gardens that need work and repair. One of the languages Mickey speaks is Swahili. She is working on learning Ugandan from her Uncle Lebu and his grandfather. The Sunjays own the tree farm and garden center with the landscaping company. They are who can help with this. I am glad Mama is not here to hear me say this, but I will be honest. The gardens have not been tended to for many years. They are in serious need of help. They can be brought back to the beauty that they once were, and Lebu and his family have volunteered to do the work and see what they can salvage and save. As I called out in the first video, there are fruit trees in an overgrown orchard and down along the pathways to the river. My friend and brother in Mandula and two of my great nieces are fighting to save the trees and all the berry bushes. You have blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, and gooseberry, along with several huckleberry bushes that are in amongst this. There is also marionberry bushes and boysenberry. They want to talk to you, if you purchase, of the possibility of doing the picking of the fruit and purchasing from you of it in exchange of helping to save these specimens. Let me walk you down and show you the disaster that is the docks. She showed each of the trees that canopied over the walkway and the beautiful colors that remained on them in the fall of the year. As they neared the dock, Colette growled, "Great! Someone has tried the dock." Mama did not know when she spoke to you in the first video that there was damage here. I will show you, and we will have to document it. She panned the docks with the camera. This will need to be repaired. Michael, she pointed to the little girl, do not go too far. I know you, T.S., Toby, and your Cappies can swim where your daddy can't, but that river is too cold to be fishing a wet Cappy or fox, and Aunt Stevie's foxhound out of that drink after they drag you out. Yes, Abuela. We'll stop here. Besides, I don't want to take the risk. Princess Di is in rut, and water is where they mate. She probably won't let Bobby Sands 'cause he's still a kit, but I don't need Daddy losing it over more of them. They can give birth to, on a lucky litter, up to 8, and I can't see Daddy and me dealing with 8 more of these guys. They're capybaras. Oh, crap, that's right. Excuse my language. Colette rubbed her chin. We'll show you the back gardens that are now, in modern days, the front of the land facing the covered walkway bridge and the river road, or what's also known as Route 32. They turned, and within a few moments they were coming around the side path of the house to show the pantry and the kitchen. The kitchen and pantry that you see, the back of here, with the hall that splits the two, and the porch were originally separated from the home, as Mom explained. In the 17th century and prior, the scent and smell of cooked food wasn't too good for people. There were originally a large cookhouse, and they were attached by the butler's pantry in the late 1800s. The Dutch door is set in the hallway and is meant to be used for the access to the kitchen gardens and the orchard. The Sanjay family want to lend their expertise here. I'm not trying to sell you on these folks. They are family. Lebu is married to Christina Calhoun, and they know their stuff. They work with the Historical Society and are very good at what they do. Well, this ends our tour of the ground, and let me walk you over the bridge to where Mama and Papito are waiting, and you can see the parking area. If you have any questions, please email either Mama or myself. Or me and Daddy. He knows a lot about the beautiful old girl here. Bye, Mickey waved. The video ended with a walk across the footbridge and continued circular video of the parking area. Annie scrolled down to find, indeed, there was a price with Shelley's, Colette's, Jessie's, and Mickey's email address attached. What do you think? She asked Dima. He looked at the text as he drank his coffee and smiled at the price. Lease purchase. It will give us time to work on the house. You will have a position with her, and I can find work. I think asking price is reasonable, $295,000. With help, as she says is available, I can do most of the work on this. I am trained. He sighed and drank his coffee. Dima, what? She shut down her laptop and set it aside to pick up Tatiana and nurse her. What is wrong, my dear? My studies. The years at university for teaching. Bachelor's degree. Is worthless now because of this war. I have become dim. I cannot use my documents to get teaching job in U.S. I will find something to support our family as you have. I must. You will find work, sweetheart. In the meantime, I have a position waiting, and we have funds to survive on. Now, you must eat and keep your strength up, or we will need to heat it in that microwave thing, and it will not be so good. She smiled, and they began to eat. Chapter 21. Kita Kashtoff sat in the cell at the Berlin office of Interpol. He made his contact and gave his report to his commander back in Moscow. To his astonishment, he was told he would need to have patience. They would have him released from custody, but it would take as long as a month or more. Interpol in Germany would not cooperate with the Russian delegation. In the meantime, they would send a replacement to watch the airport and track whatever flight these people would take. He'd given the description of the family. What he wanted to know was how was the Vigorodovs moving around so freely. He'd seen the truck from the hotel window this morning in the parking lot and gone to investigate long before the buffet encounter with the woman and child. As a matter of fact, he had investigated the truck and gone to his room to report in, then gone to breakfast where he had come in contact with them. At least there had been one that fit the description Protopopkov gave. However, when he got closer, it did not have a Ukrainian license plate. The plate was German. And it was old and covered in dirt and grime. He looked at the window, expecting to see items that belonged to what he would have thought to believe would be a refugee family, and what they would flee with. Bags of clothes, boxes of items, blankets, family pieces. Maybe a photo or two. Instead, what he saw was a plain interior, a brown carpet, an empty water bottle, hanging from the rearview mirror was a string of some type of beads that were attached to 2 flowers with ribbon streamers. The first, a sunflower with yellow and blue ribbons. The second, a red flower of some type he thought may be a poppy, with a black center and white and blue ribbons that hung from it as well. These were supporters of Ukraine and Israel. He just knew it. Obviously, he snarled to himself, now as he sat here. On the radio knob was an air freshener. Between the seats was a medium-sized dog bed with a toy and a bowl for water. In the back was some type of cart that he'd seen used as a stroller for pets. Set on the passenger seat was a beanie hat. From what he could see into the rear compartment, there was a pet carrier of some type and what looked to be a duffel bag. What was in the open bag threw him. There were several toys, dog toys. A couple of dog bones lay about the floor of the van, and nothing else to notice. As he stood looking at it and figuring out what this all might mean, a couple approached the truck with some kind of mutt thing. Both were blonde hair and blue-eyed and very athletic in their build. The female slid open the passenger door to lift the dog in and sat in the seat herself. She watched him. It seemed as if she was taking notice to all things about him. Cugott also could sense the male was watching him as well and taking in all that he saw. They both resembled a man he once knew that was a German intelligence operative, Olaf Braun, he muttered to himself as he sat looking at the bars of his cell. Braun was connected to Boris Vigorgradov's. The boy does not know that his grandfather was a German operative who was an enemy, as was Alexandre Litvinenko. Only thing got away from us as they were to be seized before the old man died. But no, she and that dumbass that was in my office the other day couldn't get the damn job done, and it freaking got dumped on me. Then there was the issue of him getting the sweet piece of ass pregnant once again, and she thinks she is smart because she is playing 2 ends against the middle with my stupid father and has his other child. Now my dumbass brother kills that one, and I lose the possibilities of getting the shit from a quiet visit to Voiburg and get into the lower apartment to see if he left them there. Christ! Am I the only one born of my father's mistakes that has any brains? And I am the one sitting here on my ass behind bars. Wonderful, Cugott. You ass of a son of a bitch. He laid his head back against the wall. How is it that the items were not found in the apartment after Boris's death and transported with the child for Anna to see them at the orphanage, and then the boy vanishes from there and disappears until he starts university? Then we track him to Moscow, and when we find his roommate, the idiot Igor, murders our lead to him. This causes the teacher to transfer to St. Petersburg, where we did not want him to be to begin with. Then to Viborg, and meets his oldest bastard brother, who is my asinine father, has to have with one Victoria, and is the half-brother to the one we are trying to get the items from. And Jesus Christ, on top of that, there are other children involved from these idiots. I am living in a freaking American soap opera. He slammed his head against the wall of the cell. Kita turned his mind back to the couple with the dog. The man or boy had taken the keys from his pocket to open the driver's slide door. The girl had handed him the hat, which he pulled on and flipped up the brim to show the patches that made him want to growl even more. One of a dachshund dog, Dim and Puppy J, and the second of Crusoe and Daphne. The third was of Oakley and of Delilah. The girl put on a cap as well, and did the same with the brim. He looked at several more dachshunds. In going back to the room, he looked up the names: Teddy, Theo, Norman, Meatball. The girl wore 2 patches that were not a dachshund, but of a little furry things. When he looked them up, the one dog drove a toy car. Its name was Coda Fluff. The other was Barkley, the Oklahoma Chihuahua. Fucking Canadian and American dog lovers. I hate dogs. They are nasty, they smell, and they shit all over the place. He growled as he looked at the scar from a nasty bite he received many years ago from his father's bastard son's dog. The man looked down at the dog as the woman unzipped her jacket to show a T-shirt with Puppy J holding a hatchet or an axe that said, "Puppy J, not just your ordinary dachshund." As the young man slid behind the wheel that morning, he started the truck and backed out as the male wore a T-shirt that had a circle on it with Doxydin. The boy looked at her. She smiled and waved to Kashkov as they backed away. She wore a T-shirt with the dachshund holding an axe. The man also locked eyes with Kita as he put the truck in gear and pulled away. Those blue eyes. Kita knew those blue eyes. They were the eyes of an old enemy, a German man who had worked with the American CIA agency, a defector and former KGB agent who joined the German intelligence force and had escorted his leader onto the plane for his removal from Germany. These two were related to Olaf Brahm. He could tell by the eyes. They were related somehow. But how? Their eyes could not lie. And Olaf's connection to the CIA was through Alexei Khrushchev. An hour later, he noticed the vehicle was back in the parking lot. That was when he had went for breakfast and took notice that the female worked as a server at the buffet, and the male was bussing and waiting on tables at the more expensive restaurant that sat across the way from the buffet. That was of interest was to him, and what was of interest was why they both resembled Joseph Braun and Michelle's late wife, Valletta, Joseph's younger sister. He was positive the woman was the server in the breakfast buffet area, so he reported this too to his commanding officer. Could many of those trucks were still on running order at this time? How many of them could have existed or survived the war? Could they have sold it? He asked himself. If possible, that was very quick. And yet, the woman he tried to speak to wore an engagement ring and a wedding band, and Helga had stated this couple were married for several years. Kita scratched his head and thought. They had to have been if they had a boy that age. After Michelle had said they were mother and child. Did he not, after all? This he did not understand as to how this could be. He also knew Helga to not lie or to be caught in a lie. Cashcop knew he checked the bank account of Dmitri. The man was a student teacher and drafted on May 1st, then listed as missing in action in late October. Yet, at 2,500 American dollars, his account only showed a balance of 30 in U.S. dollars. That placed him at less than 3,000 rubles. So, he has been drawing from the account, but not since deployment, and the intelligence had hand-picked to be placed on this mission for them to be able to retrieve the photos and just have him be a casualty of the war in late September. His funds were placed and withdrawn the day before deployment. And the woman was... He concentrated on the boy he saw that morning. Was he the one in the video or not? The boy in the morning had brown hair, but gold ran through it like sunlight. The child spoke fluent Portuguese when spoken to by Dilettante. He understood and answered him dutifully, but yet the badge was not shown to them until after the boy had spoken, so they did not know he was law enforcement. Keita leaned forward to rest his elbows on his knees and dropped his head. And when I see them first, they are infant. The child had dark hair like this. There is no way he was in Ukraine when this child was conceived. He was still a student teacher. This man he saw also had long hair and full beard, not military style at all, and name of register of the hotel he could not get from Helga. If it is true they are Portuguese, and this is not who I seek, then information from someone is wrong. Also, the man I see with them last night, he is bigger build, much bigger build than what Dmitri would have been. How is this possible? If he was injured as badly as video shows, but yet strong enough to severely injury Perto Popkov, or whatever that idiot's name is, that with whatever it was he used as a weapon. Now we have no way of knowing, as he succumbs to the brain injury and died this morning. How is this possible? He asked himself. An officer approached the cell door to open it. Kashkov rose. Your lawyer is here to see you. The man spoke in German. Chapter 22. Night had fallen, and it was starting to get bitter cold once again. He would need to find shelter through the night in order for them both to survive. As the young former Russian soldier who had been left behind for the animals to tear at and destroy, Peter Gromanov had woken as rain had started to fall, and he'd heard Igor Cugott screaming at his best friend Dima to prepare to move out and leave the dead for the vultures. In return, Dima had shouted at him and called him multiple names in Russian, German, Polish, and in English. Peter didn't understand half of what Dima had screamed at him. Then Dima had left him his water canteen and several bottles, and what little food he had with his own pack. "I will not let him take this from you. At least I know I have tried." Dima began to say the Kaddish of the mourner's prayer in Hebrew. "Be careful of him," Peter had warned. "He wants something that you carry. I know not what, but he wants something." Peter had warned before he closed his eyes to the pain that had felt like fire in his throat. He didn't know how long he had laid there. Days, weeks, a month? He wasn't sure. Peter had woke to an unbearable thirst. He got his hand on the canteen that Dima had left him and guzzled the water. Knowing he had been shot, but not how bad it was, he started to check the wounds. The one to the side of his throat was covered with something. It seemed like it was moving. He reached up to find the wound was packed and festering with maggots. Rolling, he threw his hand up to brush them away and grabbed for the backpack that held his things and the Russian military's worthless shit they supplied him with. Peter dug through the package. He'd grabbed the alcohol patches to tear open and started to scrub the area as he felt them tearing away from the wound. The rest of his body had started to throb. He realized there was something laying behind him that he'd landed near in his roll. It was warm, and the other furry thing that was there was very cold to the touch. As he turned to look, he saw the dead female bear that had multiple wounds. Lying against her and looking at him was a small cub. "Blaya!" Peter started to shimmy away. "Yo!" The cub had yawned at him. Peter realized the cub could not have been more than a month old and would die if he did not do something. "Shit! I guess I am the caregiver to a bear cub. What will I call you?" He cleaned the wounds he had and the one the cub had suffered, that they'd stayed in the shelter of the cave where he had drugged himself to for a few days, as the two of them gained their strength together. That was weeks ago. Tonight, Peter and the bear trotted through the field as the night was coming on. The man reached out to brush the top of the cub's head. They had walked through the nights and found places for them to rest during the days, and he listened for gunfire, and they managed to skirt the war-torn areas. He didn't know which direction he was actually going. He couldn't tell by the sun, as they were resting under trees during the day or in caved areas or dilapidated buildings, but in the nighttime he followed the stars. Peter had never learned how to follow the sun, but in his mapping of the night sky by the stars, he still wasn't sure. In the weeks before, he'd cut apart most of the old Russian uniform to use as bandages for himself to handle the wounds both he and the bear had. There were 3 to his side where the bullets still were embedded and had been stopped by his ribs. They'd cracked or broken as he'd been hit. 1 to his thigh that had blown through the meaty part of it. Luckily, it had not cracked the bone. The neck wound that he'd spent hours plucking those nasty-ass maggot things from his body was still giving him problems. He dug 2 bullets from his wrist and the inside of his left knee. He had packed them with the mold he found and knew from his bubby was penicillin, and had wrapped them in the web of several spiders to have the skin start to adhere and grow over. Peter had also had to remove a bullet from the bear, where it appeared that he and his dead mother had been caught in the crossfire of a firefight in the war. He used the penicillin to pack the cub's wound as well. Something he had surprised him as he worked on the wound at his neck was that someone, he figured it would have been Dima more than likely, had performed a tracheotomy to attempt to save his life. He still needed to clean that and draw the phlegm and things from it. Peter bore a still healing scar where his throat had been slit open, and some type of tube from a wrecked vehicle they'd found outside of the cave had been used for him to breathe through. Some of the other material from his old uniform he'd saved was used to make a collar for the bear. As he made his way out of the cave and down closer into the outskirts of the village that he had heard the fighting coming from, he found the bodies of both Ukraine and Russian soldiers. Peter had checked the military bags that were scattered and took what he could salvage: underclothes, socks, 2 pairs of boots, and any jackets he could find to protect himself from the beginning of the freezing weather. He skirted the village as he still heard the sounds of fighting from within that area. Several nights as they made their way, as he was trying to figure out how to get home, he found abandoned houses. In them, he was able to gather some civilian clothing. This allowed him to destroy the last of his military issues. He'd actually found several hiking backpacks that replaced the one he carried from the cave. What he'd also done that he regretted but would pray for forgiveness, and had hoped that he would have received the forgiveness, was that as he checked packs of the dead, was that he was able to take any money that was left within them. He had rubles, euros, and American dollars. There was also Ukrainian funds. Shaking his head, he knew by the other things he found that not only were the dead Russians looting, but so were some of the Ukrainians stealing from their own people. These items were packed in his own backpacks, and he was hoping that he could find a way to turn these items over to the authorities at whichever place he would find himself. But how he was to do this, he did not know. Peter looked out before him as he saw movement in the distance. The person in the field had obviously spotted him. They turned for the large ramshackle barn. Peter placed his hand on the bear's head. "Stop," he said in Russian. The cub stopped and then sat. It was the only language he knew to be fluent in. His bubby had taught him his Hebrew for prayer, but nothing else. He looked about. "Where can we?" He stood there and turned in a circle. There were now 2 people coming towards him from the barn. They continued to walk forward. One of the persons raised a hand. Peter did not move, nor did the bear. Within several moments, the girls were in front of him. They didn't fear the cub. This was very odd to him. Normal people would see a bear cub and turn and flee, or they would flee or try to climb a tree to get away from it. Not these 2 young women. As a matter of fact, one of the girls went to her knees to reach out to the bear. The other spoke in a language that was not Russian and did not sound like Ukraine either. The girl who was petting the bear looked up at the other and spoke. As she looked at him, she asked, "Where are you from and what is your name?" It was in Russian. Peter rattled off his name and told them he was from Voiburg. The girls looked at each other. The elder girl took her phone from her pocket. She dialed to put it to her ear and spoke in the language she didn't know. The two girls spoke rapidly. As the one petting the cub rose, she motioned to him to follow. Peter shook his head. "Come, you and he need food. We have. You need care. Papa says to bring you. Mama can and will help. She speaks your Russian words. They will understand you much better than either of us can." Peter swallowed hard. He looked at the bear. "Oh," the cub grumbled. "I'm following your lead on this, my friend. If you feel safe," Peter spoke to the cub. The cub stood and started forward. Peter brushed his blond bangs from his eyes. In however long he'd been in the cave for, and the time they were walking for, his hair had grown long and his beard had filled in, so that it was not a patchwork quilt of blonde, strawberry, and light brown anymore. It was full. His hair was below his collar, and he used the little girl's hairband he found in an empty house to pull it up the way he'd worn it at the upper part of his head when he was a civilian in the position of an auto mechanic. The two of them followed the girls to what appeared to be a large farm. He and the bear were met by the girl's parents, and to his surprise, the barn was more than a holding place for horses, cows, and farming livestock. There was a lioness and a lion with cubs, a small pack of wolves, a family herd of zebras, along with a water buffalo. "I am Carol, my wife Mara, our daughter Ira and Eva. We are the Zarkovsky's family. We are a traveling zoological study company." Carol spoke in fluent Russian. "Where am I?" Peter asked. Carol blinked. "You do not know?" "Yet. I come from Ukraine. Soldier who does not believe in what?" Da, I completely understand," Carol stated. "You were wounded by Ukraine and—" "Yet, not Ukraine." "What do you mean, not Ukraine?" Carol asked. "Mr. Zarkovsky, I was shot by my psycho commanding officer when I and a friend, Dima, tried to stop him from raping and killing a woman. It did not. She died, and I was left for dead by him. Dima, he tried to save my life. He touched his throat where the emergency tracheotomy had been done. I told him to go. I hear my bubby. She tells me to get to a cave. I crawled and rolled after several days that had laid me in there. I woke up with the bear. His mother is dead. I become his family. Where am I, please?" "Waskowskawek, Poland." Peter staggered. His body gave out, and he landed in a pile of straw on the barn floor. Carol knelt down. "Were you trying to get back to Russia?" "I don't know where I was trying to go, but I have no family, and the man who did this, he's my older half-brother. What is his name?" "Igor Kashkov," Peter stated. Carol nodded. "I don't even know what day it is or the date of this day." 15 November, Ira stated and smiled. "Do you have legal papers?" Da, I have my birth certificate and my ID in my driver's license. Carol looked at Eva. Papa, we have Rosie. Carol nodded once more. We are going to U.S. My wife, she is American-born, as are my daughters. Peter looked at him, then to the girls and the mother. What is he asking? I do not understand, and I do not want to bring harm to your family. Mara smiled. Do you want out? Out of Russia, out of the war, out of Europe. We can claim you. Would you want to come and work with us? Peter blinked. Oh, da, but only if... Can the bear come too? He coughed repeatedly. He can be transported with our animals, Mara smiled. Then yes, thank you. I know one to deal with Putin. A friend, he has items. If he survives this war, he may have a way to stop this crazy man. Carol stood. He reached out to take Peter's hand and pull him to his feet. Then he realized the wounds the young man had suffered. You are now our son. I am former Russian, SVR. But no more since I met my wife. The man smiled. I am friends and connections I have with a man in the U.S. named Alexei Khrushchev. He is former KGB and is semi-retired CIA. Wow, Peter blinked. He will help us get your papers. Myra nodded. I was CIA. That's how we two met. He was there to attempt to kill me. Instead, we fell in love. Chapter 23. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the sky over Berlin had darkened so profusely with the storm that it looked as if it was past 6 in the evening. They had enough food to last through the day. Annie had watched Dima struggle through when he tried to maneuver and use the bathroom. But this time, as he tried to gain his feet and the right hip caused his leg to buckle, it terrified her and the children. Dima slammed into the wall as he tried to keep from dropping completely to the floor. Ivina scrambled across their bed to get her thin body under his right shoulder, between him and the wall, and wrapped her arms around his waist as Annie took the full height of his 6-foot frame and his weight. Dima squeezed his eyes shut, gritting his teeth, and cursed profusely under his breath in Russian. All 5 issues he wanted to blame, plus 1. 1. Putin for this goddamn war. 2. Igor Kashkov for shooting Peter and then himself. 3. Himself for his weakness and leaving Peter behind. 4. The rainy weather for causing his pain. 5. Who the hell it was that created the reason as to why the SVR agents were hunting for him and his new family. The plus was those that were spewing the hatred towards Israel. Even though he was born in Russia, he was born into a family of Jews, as was Peter's bubby. These were his people. They managed to get him into the bathroom and back into bed. Annie picked up her bag and pulled on her new long winter coat. "Where are you going?" he asked. He laid his head on the prop pillow that she and the children had fluffed around him. "You need something for the pain, and there is no way you will be able to make the walk through the airport terminal when we are going to leave in the condition you are suffering from now. I will also bring back dinner." "But no, Dima." Ivana shook her head. It is too much for you to try to fight. Annie is right. He released a breath through his gritted teeth. Fine, but be careful. I will. She leaned down to kiss him and left. Dennis is asleep, so would you feel up to playing a game of cards? Ivana picked up his deck from the side table. Dima nodded. Do not cheat. He wagged a finger at her. I will know, Dima smiled. I never cheat. At least, well, I've never been caught cheating. As yet. She smiled back at him. Dima sunk into the pillow with laughter. And there we will end the story. We now know something else that Dima doesn't know. Peter is his younger brother through Victoria, and there seems to be other connections with other things throughout this. I hope you have enjoyed this segment of the stories. If you have, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe, ring the bell for our next notification. We will continue to read on with the story and see what happens with Dima and Ani, now that we know they are going to New Hope. And I thank you for giving us your time to stay. I wish you blessings and a good day. So mote it be.